Okay, Emmy fans, what's going to win Best Drama Series? Last year, Game of Thrones pulled off what was seemingly impossible and won a fantasy series with dragons winning at the Emmys. That never really happens. It happened with Lost back in 2005. Occasionally, a kind of genre show will slip in, but we saw the most popular or most beloved show on TV actually take home the gold last year. Daniel Montgomery, our senior editor, is it going to happen again? Gold Derby odds say yes, but what say ye?
Yes. I think it's it's not a lock per se because last year was the first time it won. This year it has almost as many nominations, so it's certainly still popular. I think it's not the type of show the Emmys usually go for, so I would be a little bit more tentative about predicting it. If there were like one other show that really just exploded in a way that I think that would be the next.
Yeah, it's called Mr. Robot. So, yeah, there is another show that's got the really cool factor and the hip thing going on here. Mr. Robot is also, it's about a hacker. It's super sexy. Rami, with the show won at the Globes, right? Rami didn't win. What about Mr. Robot versus Game of Thrones?
I think Mr. Robot is in it. It got the nomination for best writing, and you usually need either a writing or directing nomination to win. The last drama series to win best drama series without one of those categories, writing or directing, was The Practice. I think that was 17 years ago. Wow. So it's got that going in its favor. It's the hot new show like Homeland was. It's got that going in its favor.
Homeland won that year.
Yeah. But it did slightly, Mr. Robot did slightly underperform. It didn't get into directing. Didn't get in Christian Slater for supporting actor, who was someone who he won the Golden Globe. He won Critics' Choice. If they were like in love with this show, I would have thought they would have gotten him in. It could have gotten more technical nominations than it got. So I think it's definitely in it. I think it's probably I have it ranked second or third. But it's I think it needed a little bit more oomph to really push.
All right, Marcus, let's you and I straighten Daniel out about something here, and it's called the calendar. And that when they were voting for nominations, the show was old news, right, in June, and Mr. Robot was a million years ago. Now when they're voting on the nominees that are out, the show is on. It's the water cooler show. It's buzzy. It's cool. So things are different now, aren't they? So you can almost rationalize the underperformance of Mr. Robot in the nominations, but yet it got the key ones. It got best drama series. It got best writing. It got best actor there, and it's on TV now. And none of these other shows are, right, Marcus?
That may help it a little bit, but
oh, come on, a little bit? How about a lot of bit?
When nominations came out and Game of Thrones had 23, keep in mind all 19,000 members of the Academy are voting for Best Series. That means all the cinematographers are voting, all the sound mixers, all of these visual effects people, everyone. And we already know what they like. They like Game of Thrones. It got 23 nominations.
They didn't like it the first 4 seasons.
That's because Breaking Bad was on.
But it was a different. You got to talk about the different voting. You got to talk about
the different competition. I mean, Mad Men won.
No. I'm talking about the ballot. Last year and this year, it's a different voting system than it had been historically, and this year in particular, when they're just picking one of those 7 nominees. Historically,
right. So that will help Game of Thrones.
Historically, it was a much smaller voting pool, and they had to rank the choices. This year, it's the entire 22,000 members, and they just have to pick their favorite show, their one favorite show.
Right.
And I like the theory that you're citing about the text could carry it along, but that didn't work in the past. I think Game of Thrones would have won last year anyway, after what Marcus is pointing out, that Breaking Bad had already left. It had won the last 2 years of its run, right? Mm-hmm. And then Mad Men
won one of those years too.
Yeah. But I think that, honestly, you're talking about what's gotten is well represented in key categories. I'm gonna you're gonna roll your eyes like you did when I mentioned Modern Family on comedy series, and we did that stuff. Downton Abbey. I mean,
I have it in second.
It's never won. It got a writing nomination for Julian Fellows. He hadn't been nominated for a couple of years. It got a directing nomination. In terms of popular show, it's probably watched by almost as many people as Game of Thrones. I know the Academy's really expanded this year in terms of adding new members. So maybe the age of the voter the average age might be lower. So maybe fussy folk like me who love their Downton Abbey, there may not be as many of them in the Academy, but certainly it's well represented across categories. It's got Maggie Smith.
It is elitist. They like that a lot.
Yeah.
And there are, in general, the Emmys don't go for a show in its final season, but there are exceptions. The Sopranos won in its final season. Everybody Loves Raymond. Barney Miller had lost, 6 times leading up, and then a comedy series in its final year. So you could see a farewell hug here. And Breaking Bad in its final season, that's true. So we could see a farewell hug here. It is the elitist show. The show that inspired it, Upstairs, Downstairs, is a big record holder. It won Best Series, I think, 4 times, if you count both drama series and limited series where it's competed. And Downton Abbey, let's recall, in its first year, in its new incarnation, won Best Limited Series, and then it moved over to the drama categories. So it proved it can take a series award. So it's not out of the realm of possibility.
But
I think it's possible too, and I think it has those. It not only it doesn't have as many nominations as it did earlier in its run, but it has major categories like Maggie Smith getting in again for Best Supporting Actress, and it has both writing and directing. That's how much both branches liked it. They both brought it in this year. So yeah, I think it's definitely one of the top 2 or 3 shows definitely in it to win it.
But the other one has got to be the Americans. We have to talk. I mean, you've got, it finally broke through. We kept every year we would have these slugfest pre-nominations, and we were always predicting the Americans from season 1, and finally in season 4 it breaks through, and in a big way. It gets another writing nomination, but also its 2 leads get nominated. Last week, right before Emmy voting starts, it wins Best Drama Series from the TV critics. I mean, that's got to, that's a seal of approval. That gives Emmy voters permission to vote for a show, to give it the series win for the first time in its 4th season, like they did last year with Game of Thrones in its 5th.
It's been loved by critics. It finally got its due, and it's in the running, that is for sure. And we don't know how strong it is because it hasn't competed in these top races to date, but it's a force, absolutely.
It reminds me kind of Friday Night Lights. People were championing that show for years and years and years, and it didn't get into Best Drama until, I think, season 5.
Its final year, that's right.
And then that year it won Best Actor, and it won Best Writing. So the Americans has a good shot. I don't know about the main category of Best Drama, but I think it could win some of those other ones. Maybe Writing, maybe Margot again. She did what, more than last year? She was in 3 minutes instead of 2 minutes, so she could easily win again.
Well, and also, I mean, they're intensely private, Matthew Rhys and Kerry Russell. Before they were together as a couple, they were intensely private, and now as a couple, it's sort of multiplied by 4. And yet they've given joint interviews. They're doing press. They are out there, in this Emmy season, and I think that matters. They are talking, and he's so charming and saying no, he'd never seen Felicity until he met Kerry Russell, and even now he's only watched a couple of clips on YouTube, So I think that charm offensive, I think, matters. I mean, who's out there in this moment on behalf of Game of Thrones, Right, like there's no, right, like I think some of that matters. And then to Mr. Robot, the first season, as you said, may have underperformed at the Emmys nominations. Second season's on, but the second season feels like such a different show than the first season. There's a disconnect. So it's sort of like, well, you're watching season 2 and going, well, this is different than season 1. So I'm not quite convinced on that score. But this is an embarrassment of riches. I mean,
it is, and let's talk about House of Cards. There's an election going on right now, and it should have won before. This is what, season 3, is it? Or season 4? 4, is it? And it was better than ever this year. My God, it went screaming over the top. But while it was nominated for Best Drama Series, it didn't get nominated for Writing or Directing again, and it wasn't nominated last year. It's this bizarre thing that happens to Netflix shows. Kimmy Schmidt's an example this year. Again, not nominated for Writing and Directing. Wasn't nominated for Writing and Directing last year. Or did Kimmy get nominated this year for Writing, or no? No, again, so it's a strange, strange thing. But House of Cards is better than ever. It's got these movie marquee stars in lead roles, and it's in the running for drama series. It's overdue to win. Part of me kind of hopes it does. You know, it's the West Wing with anti-heroes, so it kind of looks like a show that used to sweep here.
You know who loves House of Cards is the acting branch. They gave it 2 leads, 1 supporting, and I believe 5 guest stars.
Wow.
So, and the acting branch is probably the biggest branch, right? Paul, you would know.
It's about 2,500 people out of 2,000. Yeah. No, the biggest branches are TV executives, right? Yeah.
Of course. I mean, unfortunately, the TV Academy is a little less forthcoming than the Motion Picture Academy because the Motion Picture Academy gives you the exact count. So the TV Academy plays a little close to the chest, but I do think they've significantly expanded from last year to this in terms of the number of people. And now, as Tom mentioned, he is one of 22,000 voters. So, and Tom, tell us, you mentioned it just obliquely in the comedy side. So you said you got a little, was it the Chromecast thing that you're just going to stick into your television and it's going to pop up? And
I didn't even get the Chromecast thing. I probably should have ordered it. Last year, you know, a division of Microsoft Chromecast from Chrome, I guess
it's Google. It's Google. It's good. That's Google.
It's Google. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm not even sure if it's a division of it, the company that did the app, but it was through your Chrome browser that you were supposed to watch it, and there were a lot of problems with it last year. A lot of people reported issues, but you can just watch it. I got the email the other day that just said, all right, here's all the video that's up for Emmys. Start watching it now. This was as of Wednesday of this week. In other words, August 10th, and then voting starts next Monday. So they were giving you a little advance, you know, run up to start watching things. And all the episodes are in there. They don't, which is interesting. They don't restrict it by peer groups. So while I'm not allowed to vote for acting awards, I'm able to see the episodes they submitted, and certainly the ones on the program side, and it's very good. But you know what it's like watching video on your computer. It's not the same as watching it on TV.
And so I think that the Chromecast, the little fob, a lot of the newer TVs, if you stick it in to a USB port on the side, it's going to open up an app, and then you would be able to watch it on your television. That's my understanding.
Yeah, so I can use an HDMI cable to do the same thing.
Yeah. So, but these series, I mean, like when we look at this list of just what's up, I mean, it really is extraordinary. Like you said, when you kind of go, how has House of Cards not won before? How has that the Americans has only just come in? But one that did win before and is back is Homeland. What are people's senses of its place in the race this year?
Great season, it really did. And Claire Danes, she's up for Best Actress. She's already won twice. She submitted a really great episode where once again her character goes off her meds, so she's kind of doing the drugged up kind of performance that Emmy voters love. But it did get directing too, which is important. It got a directing nomination. But it didn't get Miranda Otto win. A lot of people thought she had a great shot. So perhaps it underperformed a little bit.
Yeah. And because it's sort of in the moment, it's also it's political in tone and somewhat. Does that make it feel more relevant if you're a voter? I mean, it's, as you said, it's well received. It's obviously watched by a lot of people.
Yeah, this is a show we know the voters are watching because what's really interesting is Season 3 was just universally panned by everyone. No one liked Season 3. And that's the season Emmy voters didn't nominate it. Season 4 and 5 got much better, and those were nominated. So the voters, when they don't like it, they don't nominate it. When they like it, they nominate it. So they're clearly watching the show, which only helps. I mean, sometimes I think there's name checks, show name checks, and that's how some shows get nominated. But with Homeland, we know they're watching the show.
And yeah, and then the other nominees, we've got Better Call Saul, I guess, rounding it out, which I guess was nominated last year and this year. And it's got the Breaking Bad slot. So is it one of those things like Breaking Bad had to wait for the Mad Men run to stop before it could win? I mean, is Better Call Saul got to wait for the Game of Thrones mania to die down? I mean, and including next year. I mean, I know, Daniel, you wrote about that, the fact that Game of Thrones won't be in the race next year. How much do you think that's going to matter to Emmy voters this year? Knowing,
I don't think they'll mind giving it to Game of Thrones again this year. I do wonder if maybe the producers and writers of shows that haven't started production yet for this next coming season are like, okay, we're not saving anything. We're putting it all out for this upcoming season because Game of Thrones is out of the way. But yeah, I mean, Game of Thrones taking a season off. If anything, it might even help Game of Thrones because Emmy voters know they're not going to be able to vote for it for two more years until 2018.
They're not paying attention. That they don't even know that.
Oh, no, I disagree, Tom. I think that these are industry insiders. It's all over Variety and Deadline, Gold Derby. I mean, there's a lot been written about the fact that it's not in the mix next year. I think that it's pretty inside baseball stuff, but I think these voters, a lot of these voters are aware of that.
Especially what they're the biggest branch.
I think Tom, what they're not aware of are records and things like that, and the notion that that they forget how many Mad Men had won in a row, or how many Julia Louis-Dreyfus has won in a row.
But I think they don't know that Allison Janney could make a record this year, and they don't even know.
Yeah. But I started this. Better Call Saul. Is it one of those? I mean, the fact that there's so many shows on television now, so many dramas across all the different services. The fact that it got in, is that the achievement for Better Call Saul? That it got to be one of the top 7?
I don't know if it will win drama, but if there's an upset for drama actor, and if Spacey and Malick both lose or they cancel the votes, I think Odenkirk could pop in there and win Best Actor. He's so good, especially his episode he submitted.
And I think there were kind of the expectations for the show when it started last year were kind of sort of people weren't quite sure what to make of this character being spun off of Breaking Bad, which was so beloved, and it ended up working out. It got nominations last year. This year it got another 7 nominations this year. Which was, even though it didn't get into writing and directing, it has more nominations than Homeland has. That's more nominations than Mr. Robot has. So I don't think we should count it out. I think this is the kind of show that could hang in there. I think against Game of Thrones this year, probably not. But I think this could have drama series in its future if it maintains its trajectory.
Mm.
It is elitist. It's about a lawyer. They love lawyer shows, and it is has the Emmy pedigree with Breaking Bad, and it was beloved by the critics this year. It didn't do great in the Nielsen's, but it mattered as a show in terms of the quality, according to the people who judged that. So it has all those elements going for it. So, but I don't think it can get by Game of Thrones, quite frankly. I mean, the thing that was so spectacular about Game of Thrones this year is that it kept peaking episode to episode, so that when it got past the big battle one, and then it had the grand finale that was so full of great shocks and things, that it really was set up as great theatrical entertainment. Breaking Bad did it, and it had this crescendo and buzz going. So it did not disappoint. It built on its excitement.
Mm-hmm. And Better Call Saul, if we had seen Michael McKean get in or Ray Seahorn, then it would be really high on my list. But it didn't get those two in, and they really should have been in. Emmy voters, shame on you. Those guys deserve nominations.
Well, and no shame on the TV Academy for not having expanded categories. I think that there's so much good stuff. I mean, I know they've been at TCA in the last couple weeks talking about this embarrassment of riches. Hundreds of shows. I mean, Tom, you wrote the Emmy books. And so many decade upon decade when there were just 3 networks, maybe sometimes 4, with the old days.
Now there are more than 400 scripted shows in Hollywood every year.
Yeah.
400.
Uh-huh.
Wow.
Yeah. So.
Okay, so we got it all figured out. Game of Thrones, maybe, probably, but watch out for Mr. Robot.
And the Americans. And
the Americans and the others, and Downton could come through. So basically, we don't know what we're talking about, but we're having a lot of fun pretending we do. Gold Derby. Now you can change them later, but lock in your preliminary predictions and good racetrack odds right now. Beat us if you think we're stupid, and we are. Bye.